Hello and welcome to today's Bitrix24 webinar, Perfect Project Management. Thank you for joining today. Okay, so we'll just go through some introductions. So my name is Sam Connor. I'm part of the sales engineer team here at Bitrix24 Gold Partners Interface, and we're based in the UK, the US and Hong Kong, and we offer a full range of services to essentially help you with Bitrix24, starting off with pre-sale support, so we can really scope out your requirements in detail to see if Bitrix24 would be a good solution for what you're trying to achieve, and if it is, we can then implement the system for you so we can set up the Bitrix24 platform based on your specific requirements. If you require hosting for the self-hosted system, we offer our own hosting services, and we can provide you with training and ongoing dedicated support to help you get the most out of the system. Okay, so first of all, it's really important to understand what Bitrix24 actually is. So it is a collaboration suite of well in excess now of 35 different tools that you can use to help you to manage your business. And there are over 10 million customers now around the world that use Bitrix24. And the system is available in two different editions. So we have the Bitrix24 Cloud and we have the Bitrix24 self-hosted solution. Okay, and prices start from $49 per month for a cloud-based license and $2,990 for the self-hosted license, starting off with the Business 50 edition. Okay, so first of all, in today's webinar, which is Perfect Project Management, it's important to understand why you can use Bitrix24 for managing your projects. So within Bitrix24, you can manage projects within work groups. So these are centralized areas where you can bring people for managing your projects. You have central areas for each and every project. We have really good task management tools. So within every project, you can manage all of the tasks and decide who is responsible for those and communicate directly in those tasks and record task time as well. We have workload management tools, so we can look at our management reports to see actually what tasks have been allocated to specific people. So if you're wanting to actually see the workload of your users, we can view the involvement chart to see that information. And then we have Gantt chart displays to give you that high level overview of your tasks within different projects. And we'll then have a look at the reporting tools available as well. And a really nice feature with Bitrix24 is that you can invite external users into your projects. Okay, so this is a really nice feature. So if you're, say, working with your clients, or it could be some third parties, for example, what you can do is you can invite those people into those specific projects and they can collaborate with you on those projects. And you're able to have an unlimited number of external users on your projects. Now, a really nice feature if you are interested in the self-hosted edition of Bitrix24, where that external user comes to log into the Bitrix system, we can completely remove the Bitrix branding and add your own corporate branding to the login page. So it essentially looks like your own customer project portal area where you can then invite them into those projects. So that's a really nice feature available with the self-hosted edition. Okay, so first of all, today we're going to actually have a look at how we can create our own projects inside the Bitrix24 system. So we're going to see how we can create a new group and add people into the project, and then we'll have a look at some of the different features available on the project. So we'll look at the different Kanban and automations, we'll have a look at how we can collaborate with people and view calendars and documents within the project. Okay, so what we'll do here, we'll just clock in for the working day. And now what we can do is we can go into our projects area. Now, if you're new to Bitrix24, if you want to create a new work group or project, if If you click on the collaboration area and head on over to the work group section, this will then open up your work groups page. Okay, and from here what we can do, we can see all of the current work groups and projects that we are working on. Now you may have a lot of those in here, so what you can do is you can filter through this system as well. So you can drill down into those projects, and I can then filter into, say I want to find maybe all of those that have Extranet users, for example. I could drill down into those specific projects and open them up from here. But let's now create a new project in the system. Okay, so this will open up a slider page for us to now go through and start entering information to create that new project inside the system. But let's just let that load. And if you have any questions as we go through the webinar today, please do add those into the question box and we can answer those questions for you during today's intervals in the webinar. So what we can do from here is select the type of team that we want to create here. So is it a work group or is it a project? So the key difference between those two here is that on a project you will have to enter a start date and an end date for the project. With a work group you don't have to have those time parameters. So you may have a work group for each department, for example. There's not going to be a time frame on a department, so you could just have a work group for each department, bring those people into that work group and then collaborate on a department by department basis. Whereas with the project, that's going to be very time critical, so you would have a start date and an end date on that particular project. So what we'll do there, if we click into the project, we'll be able to add those time parameters, and most importantly, all of the tasks that we now use in this particular project, the end date of those tasks cannot surpass the end date of the project. Okay, so what we'll do inside here, let's just add a new title. So we're going to add this as a March webinar project. So we've got a title for the project. You can also add a description as well if you want to add more details and information. That's really up to you, but it could be, if it's a brand new project you're working on, then it could be useful for actually just detailing exactly what you are wanting the team to do within that project, for example. And then we can also add a theme. So this is the background that will show on the project itself. So you can add your own theme and an icon for the project, so you can really start to personalize the project here. And then we can add our privacy level. So the privacy level here regulates who can join and also view the team details. So you could have a public project, so this is anyone within your Bitrix24 system. They can view the project and they can access the project. You can also have private projects, so this is where really that project is private, so you only have access by invitation only. So you can't have access until the project owner has approved your request. And we can also have secret, so this is where even within that workgroup and project section we can't even request access. It just simply will not show to anyone. You have to be invited in by the project owner to even see that particular project. So you have lots of different layers of privacy. Okay, so now what we're going to do is add our members. So we can see here we have different layers of ownership. So we have the project owner, and we can then have project moderators, and then the rest of the team. So let's add some of those into here, look. And with those different layers, we can then set access permissions inside that particular project. So it could be, for example, you want only the owner and moderators to be able to create new tasks in the project. We can set that type of permission. Or it could be in another project, you can let everybody create new tasks. So based on that level of team members here, we can then set different levels of access rights. Okay, and that's now created a new project in the system. So it's brought through the team here, it's brought through the background, it's brought through all the information about the project. So now we can start working on this project with the rest of the team. What we'll do from here, we'll go into a project that has a lot more detail and information. Okay, so what we've got here is a project that is currently being worked on by the team here. Now, one thing to mention, we talked about access permissions. Okay, so here we can see all of the information about the access rights on this project. So we mentioned earlier on about how we can set different team members on the project. So what we can do here, say for example inside tasks, let's say who can create new tasks in the system. We have all of those different layers of ownership here, so we can select. So we could say all project participants could create tasks, for example, or we might say just the owner and moderators. So for every element of the project, you're able to set the access rights, and that's on every single project. So you can see already you're able to create lots of control and permissions across every single project that you run in your Bitrix24 system. Now what we can also do from here is, if we just go into the information about the project, if I wanted to, I could actually edit the project as the project. So if I wanted to come back into here and change maybe the team members or the moderators, I'm able to access here and customize the settings of the project. And we can then see all of the team members on the project as well. Okay, so what we'll do now is we'll go through this project in some more detail, and I think the critical area to focus on straight away is the actual task management section of this project. So here we can see the task section, so we can see all of the tasks associated to this project, and there's lots of different ways we can view tasks in the project. So if we just go into the list view, then what we can see is we can see all of the tasks here in that list display, and I can customize here what we can access details about. I can filter, so maybe I just want to look at all of those based on who is responsible, so I might want to look at all of Mark's tasks. So you can drill down into all of this data, so you may have a lot of tasks inside this project. Using the filtering tools allows you to quickly find specific details and information. There's also a Kanban view, so this is really useful. So for every project you can create your own Kanban display. So we can see the stages across the top here, pending, in progress, for example. Now you can customize those stages. You can have as many stages as you require. So it's completely customizable to how you want your Kanban project management style to be for every single project. And then what we can do is we can progress those tasks through the different stages like so. There's also a deadline view, and this is probably my favourite view because it just gives you that really high level overview where every project is at within the system here. So I can see very quickly what's overdue and what's due this week. So that just helps me to prioritise the workload for this project very, very quickly. And on any of these tasks that we're working on, what we can do is I can click into the task and it will open up the task page. Okay, so every single task has its own page, and that's where we can focus all of the communication and collaboration on that particular project task. So inside here we can see the task checklist, for example. I can record the time that I'm spent working on that task. And we also have a communication area. So inside here, what I can do is I can communicate with colleagues directly on this task itself. Okay, so Mark will receive that message now, and we can then communicate back on that conversation thread. So that's really useful because you don't have lots of conversations across the system. All communications can be focused down to every single task. So that's really useful to really improve and officiate your communication on tasks. Okay, so that's a task there. Now if you wanted to create a new task, then we have the new task button here. So that will open up the slider page. And just like we saw with that task that we've currently been working on, it would open up here so we could add the details about the task, add the task name, and inside here if you wanted to attach any files or documents, you could add that information into here. And then what we can do is also, as I mentioned, you can create task checklists. So you might want to add different items that maybe need to be ticked off and completed as you're going through the task. And then we can add the users to the task, okay? So you have to have a responsible person on the task, but then it could be there's other people who are going to be supporting and working on the task. So we can add other users. And then we've got the time parameters. So let's say I know the deadline of this task. So we can add that information into here. And what we then have is the start and the end date, so the task. Now it could be that you want to have this task repeated. So we have a repeat task feature which is really popular. So what we can do here is actually reactivate the task. So we have lots of accountancy firms that use the task feature within Bitrix24. So what we can do here is we could have a task automatically recreated in this project at a specific time parameter, so maybe once a month, for example, on a certain day. And you can also create task templates. So once you've populated this information, I could then use this as a template, and I can then open up the template and it will have all the information populated for me. It's got the checklist as well, and then I can just add that task into the project. So there's lots of ways you can really help to create all of the tasks in the project in a really timely manner. Okay, another view here is the planner view. So the planner view allows you to actually create your own stages. This is essentially your own personal project management page within the project. The stages you create here do not impact anyone else's planner. You all have your own planner, and the same with the tasks that I'm working on here. It wouldn't affect another user's planner. Okay, we also have the calendar. So this is based on the deadlines of the tasks. I can see those in a calendar display here. And then we also have the Gantt chart view, which is really useful because it gives you that high level overview of where your tasks are at on the project. And the red lines indicate the deadlines. So I can see here okay, so that just shows you how we can use these different tools to help to make quick decisions inside our projects. These views are really essential to allow you to save time on making decisions in terms of maybe what tasks you need to prioritize, or maybe you need to add other people onto the task to get it completed if we can see the accident report is overdue. These displays are really useful to help you to close the tasks in the most efficient manner possible within the project. Okay, so moving on, so that's a look specifically at the task management side of this particular project. Now, within the Bitrix24 project management tool here, we can add different features into the project. So, for example, here we have a feed section. So, essentially, this is very much like your own personalized newsfeed board for this particular project. So, if I wanted to, I could send a message to the team here. Okay, so I could add a new message into here, and I can decide who this is going to be sent out to. So it's going to go, right now it's going out to everybody within the project. Could be I want to add some documents or files. So I can send those messages out and people can be notified. And with any post that goes into the feed section here, you can collaborate. So we can send and people can post their own messages back in response. They can add their own likes. So it really does allow for communication focused within the project here using the feed section. And there's different types of posts you can send. So you can create a task here. You can also create a poll. So that's quite useful if you want to maybe have a question that you want to send to everyone in the project, you can then add different answers that people can select from, and then based on their selections you can then see the most favourite response. So that's quite a nice kind of fun way to communicate with people. We can send appreciations, so this is where we can send a badge to someone who's done a really good job, maybe on a certain area of the project. So it's kind of a recognition and reward in the project itself. And we can also send announcements. So announcements would be pinned at the top of the feed section. And what we can do with an announcement is we can make the user mark that they have read that particular message. So it comes up with a green button saying mark as read. So announcements are really useful for any critical information that we have. Okay, so let's look at the feed section. We also have some other features which are really useful for projects here. So we have a calendar. So this is a specific calendar for this project. So this isn't feeding in information from other projects. This is simply for this project. We can maybe add another event for this particular project into here. It's brought through everyone who's working on the project. So we could choose a time for this meeting, for example. So it's really useful for seeing what's really working on in terms of meetings and events on that particular project. One of the most popular features on projects is the drive area. So this is really useful for centralizing your documents. So here we can store documents associated to the project, and those could come from your local computer or it could be from external applications. And what's really useful here is we can set access rights. So it could be, for example, you've invited in your third parties or your clients. Well, what we can still do on here is we could upload certain documents, but what we can then do is set access rights. So maybe we only want to share certain documents and information with them. Well, we can do that. So we could remove access, or we might just give specific types of access on documents to specific roles within that project. We also have a lists feature. Okay, so the list feature is really useful if you want to store essentially tables of information about your project. So what we have here is table of information for the expenses on this particular project. So you can see across the top we have different columns, so name, consultant, the receipt, amount, etc. All of these are essentially different fields that we can add to this list expense. So when you create your own list, you can create the fields you want, so you can decide what pieces of information you want to store here. And then what we can do is we can also run business processes. So a business process is essentially running a process on the information. And we do have a specific webinar which focuses heavily on business processes, so I won't go into too much detail today. But let's say, for example, we added a new expense. So what we could then do is we could run an approval process. So this expense information will now go to the project owner to either approve or to reject that expense inside the system. And we can see here I could go on the status, so I might just want to look at all of those current pending expenses so we can see those inside the list here, or we might just want to look at all of those that have been approved, for example. So a business process really allows you to create approval processes on the information within your list. So it's a really powerful area of Bitrix24. And we also can create knowledge bases. So this could be really useful if you've got lots of different projects. It could be you want to store articles or maybe FAQs that are specific to that particular project. So rather than having lots of people have questions that are timely in having you to respond to, you could have a knowledge base set up where they could see all of the information for that project. And then we've also got a chat feature here as well, so we can instant communicate with everyone in the project team, and that can be through live chats. We can also set up voice calling and video calling. So video calling can be with up to 48 users on a call, and we can then see all of that history in this particular project. Okay, so that's a look at a particular project group inside the Bitrix24 system. Let's just see if we've got any questions. Okay, can I create extranet users using the cloud system? Yes, absolutely. So we're looking at a self-hosted edition of Bitrix24 on today's webinar, but absolutely, you can still use the extranet feature on the cloud system. Now you will just have to check what cloud package you're on. There may be limitations, say if you're on the free cloud system, but yes, definitely even on the professional cloud system, you're able to create an unlimited number of extranet users that you can then have access to your projects, and with the self-hosted system you can have unlimited extranet users. Okay, and just a follow-up question from that as well, can they see CRM module? So I assume you're referring to the CRM module within Bitrix24. They wouldn't be able to see the CRM, so really there's a reason for that, because that's an internal area of your Bitrix24 system. The key aspect of an extranet user is they would only have access to the projects that you are inviting them into. They do not have access to your inner workings of Bitrix24, such as the CRM area or other projects that they're not invited into. They only have access to those closed, secure projects that they have been invited to. Okay, another question coming here from email. Can I create a task in a project? So if you have integrated your mailboxes into the system, then it's possible to create a task from that email. So if we just open up a mailbox, then what we can do is, if we go into here, for example, we can see all of our emails. What we have the ability to do here is create a task from that particular email. So it's brought through the email information, and then what I can do is I can select what project I want to add that task into. So you would then decide which project you want to create that email that creates a task. You decide what project you want to route that into. So that's how you could create a task from an email, which is then distributed to a specific project. Okay, if there are any other questions, please continue to add those into the question box, and we'll keep running through those during the intervals of today's webinar. Okay, so moving on now, we've seen already how we can manually create a project inside the system, and that's fine. It's a really useful way to learn how to use the project management tool within Bitrix24. But let's say if you're creating a new project for every customer that you close, say in the CRM system, and if you've got hundreds of new customers a week, you really don't want to have to be manually creating those new projects every single day, essentially, because that's a very timely process. You're going to have somebody who is working on that almost all the time, and also you're going to have human error as well. So essentially you could create a new project, maybe that should be private, that you're making public and anyone can access, and there could be really private information in there. So you really want to remove as much human error that could happen as possible. So there are ways to do that in Bitrix24 using automations. And what we're going to look at first of all is using a business process to create a new project directly inside the system. So we don't need to manually create the project. We don't need to manually add people or create tasks. This is going to be done automatically for us. So let's go back into our Bitrix24 system. Now, there's lots of different ways you can actually trigger a workflow to be done. It could be, for example, when a deal hits the one stage inside your CRM system, we could then trigger this workflow. The way I'm going to do this is slightly more manual, just for the creation, just so you can see how this works. So I'm going to go in here and select the new project feature. And what this now does is opens up a form that we need to complete. Okay, so inside here we've got details of the project, so we need to add information for. Now, Again, the form that opens up here, you can customize this, so you can add what fields are mandatory. There may be other fields you want to remove or add into here. So there's lots of things we can do. Let's now add this into our system. Okay, I'm going to call this automated project. Okay, so we've added a title, and we're going to select a manager who's going to be the project manager for this project. And we've also got a designer role, so we'll add a designer as well. And I'm going to select the deadline for this project in the system. Okay, and we've got a description if you want to add that, or a file. Again, we can remove fields you don't need. But what I will add here is the type of project, because this is critical for what tasks are now going to be automatically added into this project. So by selecting project A, we're going to then have specific tasks that will be added to this project. Whereas if we selected project B, the tasks would be completely different. So we'd be going down a different process. So that's a condition that will determine what tasks are added to the system. So you can see from your business side, there may be specific services you offer, and those services all have different tasks that have to be completed. You could have those as different types in here, and then select the appropriate service, for example. Okay, so let's now complete that form. I've selected project A. Okay, and as I've been assigned as the project manager, I now have to complete some additional details, and I'm going to approve that project. Okay, so we've now created that project, it's been completed. So let's now go back into our workgroups section, and we can see automated March project has now been automatically completed in the system. So inside here I can go to the workgroup section, and we can see it's brought through specific people who are going to be working on the project. And if we go into the task section, we can see it's automatically created this task. We didn't do any of that manually. So I can click on that task and see all of the details about the task. So I could start working on this straight away and start working, and I'm going to mention somebody in this particular task. Okay, so we can see straight away we've saved time and we're already starting to work on this project, so we can now start to get these tasks completed in a timely manner. That's going to help you close more projects on time by automating processes. It removes any human error, and essentially what this also does, it means the person who was going to be manually creating all of these tasks, they can actually work on other more beneficial areas of the business. Maybe they can actually work on the projects themselves, which can only help you as an organisation. Okay, so that's working on automating a project. Now let's just go back into that section, because I just want to show you the inner workings of how we actually automated that project in the system. So if we go into the workflow directory, and let's go into the project. Now if you have any questions at all, we will add our details shortly. We can train you on how to create workflows, or we can even create workflows for you. We're very accustomed and experienced in creating workflows in the Bitrix24 cloud and self-hosted system. Kind of a key benefit with the self-hosted is you have access to the PHP code. So it could be based on your workflow. We need to access the code to be able to create this particular workflow. So it could be you need the self-hosted to have access to that particular action block in the system. But let's just look at this now. This is the workflow we've just created. So this was the new project group that we ran in the system. So in this section here, this is where we're adding all of the information about the project. That's where we had that form. And then we had to select the type of project we wanted to create. So that was that condition that we were looking at. So we selected condition A here. So we selected project A, and that automatically created that scoping task that we saw in the project. But if we selected project B, you can see here it goes down a different route. So we created a design task and a development task. So the actual tasks would have been completely different because it's a completely separate path based on the project type we selected. So that just shows the power that we have within the workflow tool here. Now let's go back into our projects. Okay, another way we can run automation is through the task automation feature. Okay, so for every type of project you have, we mentioned earlier on when we looked at the project how you can create different stages in your Kanban view for your project. So that can be customized for every project. Now, during those different stages that you progress a task through, we can create automation rules. So inside here we can see the stages, and at each type of stage here we've got different activities. So for example here we're sending an email to the responsible person, or we might send a notification to somebody. And what we can also do, there's different types of automations we can run, so there's lots of different types. But what we can also run are triggers. And a trigger is slightly different because what a trigger will do is it will automatically update the stage that that task is at. And a really good example of this is this overdue trigger. Okay? So let's say we have a deadline on a task. Now, if that task passes its deadline and the task is still open, that means the task has now become overdue because the task has not been completed by its deadline. And what we have here is the overdue trigger. So no matter what stage that task is at, let's say it's at in progress, as soon as it becomes overdue, it's going to automatically move to the urgent stage because the task is still in progress, but it's now overdue and past its deadline. So it does become an urgent task. It's quite understandable why we would want to move it to an urgent status. And once it's hit this urgent status, we can see we have some automation rules set up. So what we're doing here is we're automatically changing who is responsible for that task. So it's going to go to a senior project manager to get that task back on track and closing it as soon as possible. So you can see how we can use triggers and automations to really help you manage your tasks within projects. And this is a really nice tool. It's available on all self-hosted editions of Bitrix24 and the professional cloud edition of Bitrix24. So we can help you set up these automation rules. It's a really useful feature of Bitrix24. Okay, let's just see if we have any other questions. Okay, so yeah, I think just a question there around the automations. Again, what licenses do I need? You need at least the professional cloud license, or any edition of the self-hosted comes with the automation rules. So if you're currently on a free, a basic or a standard cloud system, you won't be able to see that feature, so you would need to upgrade. And if that's something of interest, please do contact sales@intraface.com. Our details are on the slide here. And what we can do is we can provide you with details about how you can upgrade for access to that feature. Okay, so moving on from the automation side, here is a feature that we've mentioned quite heavily already in today's webinar. It is the Extranet feature. So what we're able to do, as we have mentioned, is the ability to invite third parties such as your clients or could be suppliers into particular projects that you want to collaborate with them on. And this is a really useful feature because they get access to all the workgroup features, but as we've seen, what we can do is we can set permissions, so you might want to control actually what they're able to do within the projects, so we can set those access rights. And what we can do on a self-hosted system where they log into the platform, we're able to customize the login page. So we can remove the Bitrix branding and you can have your own corporate look and identity. So if I was being invited in, then I could log into a corporate branded page and then have access to the projects where I can then communicate with people. It really is a professional looking system when you're going to be using that, and it will impress your clients and suppliers. So if we just go into here, then what we can do, if I just go to an extranet site, one of the key differences you'll see with this is we can see, first of all, the menu is a lot more limited in what we see, and then they can have access to that particular project, and we can then communicate with them on any tasks or workings that we have inside that project. Okay, no more questions right now, so we'll move on to just have a look at some of the self-hosted benefits. So we've mentioned a lot of these already, but in terms of the extranet feature that we've mentioned, you can have a branded portal where the user logs into that particular project. So that could be quite important for you. If you're wanting to remove the Bitrix feed branding from the system, then the self-hosted system is critical for you. We also can create advanced automation, so it could be you might want to trigger an automation based on the trigger from another system, for example. So we could use the API or webhooks to create advanced automations. We also have the ability to create page customization. So in a self-hosted system, for example, in the project section here, what I could do is I could go into here and edit the page. So we have the control panel feature within the self-hosted system. This is simply not available on the cloud system, so you can already see with the self-hosted system you have so much more control over customizations of the platform. So if you're thinking about maybe creating changes in the project or task areas of your Bitrix24 system, then the self-hosted edition is really important features for you essentially, so we can customize this area. And we could even create dashboards, so you might want to be pulling information from different areas of the modules. We have the capability to do that with the self-hosted system. One thing to mention with both the cloud and the self-hosted system now is a new feature called Scrum. So if you want to create scrums inside for your project management styles, then you're able to create scrums directly inside your Bitrix24 project management tool. So you can set up and design your own scrums inside the system here. Uses the same kind of technology, it slides out the information so you can create scrum names and choose the time periods for those scrums, and then you can add your members who are going to be working on those scrums into the system. So it's another project management tool that's available with Bitrix24. Okay, so that's overview there of the Bitrix24 Perfect project. Before next week's webinar, please do add those into our mailbox, so you can email sales@intraface.com, and we'll then come back to you with answers, and we can set up any meetings with you to discuss your requirements in more detail. Okay, but thank you very much for your time today. I hope you found today's webinar useful, and I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday for the next Bitrix24 webinar. Okay, thanks. Bye for now.